Hi guys, this is Shannon from Reptile Way. Welcome back to our channel. If you watched our bearded dragon care video, or if you're new, welcome to our channel. Please don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications of more videos. And we're actually going to be doing a video about these guys, the northern blue tongue lizard. So let's get into it. So guys, the topics we are going to go over today are enclosure size, how to set up your blue tongue lizard enclosure. We're going to go over lighting, heating, humidity, diet. So pretty much from this video, we'll have all of your questions answered. We've got our beautiful lizard bangers here helping us out with this video. Now, sorry about the lighting. We are having a bit of a storm and I've been trying to video this, but it seems there's been so many storms throughout the day, so bear with us if you do hear big bangs, that's just the lightning. But let's get into this video. So guys, we're going to start off our lovely video today with a bit of basic information about northern blue tongue lizards. So for starters, this fella's scientific name is Taliqua skincoides intermedia, and I'm actually going to put on the screen sort of where it sits in family, species, subspecies, and you can pause it and sort of jot it down. It's just good to know, scientifically where they do sit. But when it comes to these guys' habitat, where are they naturally found out in the wild? And this is always really good to research before you actually get your reptile, to be able to mimic as close to what they would be experiencing out in the wild as you can. So the natural habitat out in the wild, they're actually found in woodlands, grasslands, rocky plains, sclerophyll forests, and they can be found sheltering under logs, thick, dense vegetation, with lots of grass, leaf litter. So they have a pretty broad habitat type. Now, when it comes to setting up my enclosures, I do like to delve a little bit into scientific research papers to find out, okay, where have these guys actually been found out in the wild? And that's when they've been, tracked, and people can actually tell where they've spent most of their time. So I'm actually going to put the title of a particular research paper that I read, and it's super easy to read, and it was actually quite clear of the habitat types that these guys prefer. Now, with this particular research study, they used GPS telemetry to pretty much track northern blue tongue lizards and centralians. So with this study, they had 41 northern blue tongue lizards and 8 centralians, and they tracked them to see what vegetation or what habitat types they would spend most of their time. Now, interestingly, these guys spent most of their time in sort of shady, damp areas with high amounts of leaf litter and, thick, dense grass. So pretty much in the enclosures that I'll be showing you throughout this video, we've just gone bioactive with our blue tongue lizards. We've tried to replicate that and sort of mimic what we'd find in Australia. So it is quite a damp, sort of humid environment, and people sort of forget northern blue tongue lizards can live in very humid areas. Bangers is up in Darwin, and this is where they are naturally found too, and the humidity can get to about 70 to 80%. So it's sort of a bit of a myth that they only need like 40 to 60%. You shouldn't really go out of that range. Actually, they can stand humidity levels from 40 to 90%, which means you can do a lot of cool things with these guys' enclosures, which we're going to delve into now. Now, the best place to start when it comes to setting up your enclosure is to look at the heating. So if you've got an inside enclosure and you live in a pretty cool part of the world, you definitely want to have it set around a hot and a cool side. So pretty much say this is your hot side, over here is your cool side, and your hot side is where you're going to have your heat lamp and your UVB light. Now, there are slightly different temperatures that we are going to go through when it comes to the hot side and the cool side. Now when it comes to the basking temperature, so say if you've got like a nice rock set here, your heat lamp's above, so the actual temperature on this basking spot, you probably want it to be around 37 degrees to 46 degrees. Now, my experience with northern blue tongue lizards, they are quite resilient when it comes to the fluctuation in their heat, whereas bearded dragons, they are a lot more sensitive, so which makes them a really, really good first pet to have. Now the basking air temp can be anywhere from 30 to 35 degrees, so sort of over this half, the general air temperature, that's sort of where you want it to sit around. Now the cool side, which is over here where you don't have your UVB or your heat lamp, it's just sort of space where your animal can escape from that light, from that warmth. You want it to be sitting around 21 to 27 degrees. And at night, you definitely don't want your enclosure to get any cooler than 18 degrees. So if you are in a cool area, maybe set your animal up in a particular room where you can just have the heating set on a particular temperature. Now the next topic we are going to cover is diet. Now these guys are omnivorous, they will eat both plant and animal matter. However, juveniles' diets to adults is slightly different when it comes to the amount of protein intake. So under 12 months, their protein intake needs to be quite a bit higher, so it needs to be around 70 to 80%. However, with adults, you can have their protein sitting around 50 to 60%. Now, I'm going to put some food choices on the screen, so with a list of protein, vegetables, and fruit is just an occasional treat. So I'll pop all of that on the screen. You can screenshot it, pause it, take some notes, do whatever you need to do. However, the main protein types that I use, so bugs, you can use dubia roaches, crickets, mealworms, superworms. Mealworms and superworms are high in fat, so keep in mind if your little guy is on a diet. And then also for proteins, you can use meat, so lean beef mince, kangaroo mince. You can use organs like chicken hearts, livers, that type of thing. And then vegetables, pumpkin, bok choy, broccoli, cauliflower. Fruits, you can do like berries, like blueberries, strawberries, apples, banana. So a whole range of foods you can actually feed these guys. Now I have seen a few videos where people swear by feeding their blue tongue lizards dog and cat food. Now the dog and cat food is getting a lot better these days, especially when it comes to organic and natural ingredients and not a lot of chemicals in it, or zero chemicals. So if you can find a dog or cat food that is quite natural and healthy, then go for it. I did see one person that said that they use cat food when they're babies because the protein levels are higher, and then once they get to an adult, they switch it to dog food. But again, if you're gonna go use dog or cat food, I would check out some sites, try see what people are using, and try see which cat and dog food is gonna be the best for your particular lizard. And also see if it says the protein content on it. That's always good to check out, because very, very important when it does come to their diet. Now when it comes to vitamins, the main ones that I use are calcium powder, which you can sprinkle over their food, along with a multivitamin or a superfood supplement powder. Sprinkle that over. It just gives them a little bit of extra things that they may not necessarily get from their diet, or on certain feeding days they may be missing some of that. You can also get gut loader for the feeder insects. So for the insects you're about to feed your lizard, you can put this powder in, your insects will eat that, and it'll make them packed full of nutrients, and which makes it better for your lizard. Now, UVB lighting. Now, this is a huge, huge topic of debate when it comes to northern blue tongue lizards. But anyway, if you are going to choose UVB lighting, it's got to be on that hot side and cover about half of the enclosure. There's a variety of different UVB lights you can use. You can use the domes with the screw-in little bulb. You can also use one of those sort of long bulb lights. I forget the exact name, but I'm going to put some pictures of the different types of products you can use. And again, just up to personal preference, what you think is going to work best for you. Try to do your research on the UVB, so how much light does it actually emit? You can get one of those UVB readers where you can actually see, okay, on my basking spot, my lizard is going to get this amount of UVB. So again, you can do your research a little bit on that. Now, the reason why UVB is a hot topic of debate is because it has been proven that blue-tongue lizards, especially northern blue-tongue lizards, can be bred, maintained, and sort of live a healthy life without UVB lighting. And they just get their vitamin D through supplements in their diet. However, when you look into research of people actually drawing blood from blue-tongue lizards who have had their vitamin D from a UVB light, and blue-tongue lizards who have had their vitamin D supplemented through their diet, they actually found the ones that got their vitamin D through the lighting, so the UVB light, actually had higher amounts of vitamin D3 in their blood. So for me personally, and what I try to tell all of my clients is I try to keep it as natural to the wild as what I can possibly do. So I always prefer my heating to be from above. I'm not a real fan of the heat mats or the heat rocks. However, if you are a big breeder and you've got those tub setups, obviously that isn't going to be possible to have it from above. So I do understand that, and if they can make it work safely, that's great. But for me personally, my enclosures are quite large. Their heating and lighting always comes from above because that's what would happen out in the wild. It can heat up that rock quite nicely. They can get that heat on their back. And yeah, again, I'm all about trying to get as close to the wild conditions as what you can, with also a few aesthetic options within that. Now, also the reason why they thought that there were higher amounts of vitamin D3 in the lizards that got their vitamin D3 from the UVB light is because these different forms of vitamin D3, so from the light or from dietary supplements, are actually metabolized differently. So they think, you know, that could have played a role in why in certain ones it was higher than others. Now, one of the final things we're going to go over, we're actually going to look at these guys' enclosures a bit more in depth, and I'm sort of going to explain how I've got mine set up, as I do live in a tropical area that's nice and warm. These guys are originally from where I'm living, so I thought, why not utilize that outside environment, the temperature, the humidity, and make their enclosures outside, and of course it's undercover. So yeah, we're going to check some of that out and tell you a little bit more about it. Now, with these enclosures, pretty much for 6 months of the year, which is the wet season where it's quite hot, actually very hot, very humid, I don't actually use heat lamps. And, you know, that's because it's quite warm, they don't need it. I do have UVB lights set up, but when it comes to heat lamps, I find that I don't need it, and I don't want to heat up that enclosure too much. It is outside, and that temperature they do just fine in. So that is something I am mindful of. When it gets to dry season, even then, I may not use heat lamps because it is generally around 27 degrees. In the morning, it does get quite fresh, but you'll just find these guys won't be that active in the morning. So I am trying to make it, again, the conditions that they would be experiencing out in the wild. Now, with the particular substrate that I use for my Bioactive mix, I am actually going to put some pictures up on the screen of all the different products that I use to make this soil and what works quite well for me. So here's a list of all the products, and I'll put where you can actually purchase them in Australia, and especially if you're in more of a trickier area like the NT, which we don't have some shops, so it can be hard to find things or purchase things, but most of the products that I do use can be purchased from Pet Barn, Pet Stock, and Bunnings. So I try get all my things from there, so it's easy for people watching the channel to also purchase the same products. Now also when it comes to the plants, I am going to put all the species of the plants that I like to use. Now in particular with lizards, you do have to be mindful anything that goes in their enclosure. If they do eat it, and you've got to potentially think about them eating or trying everything, that it's not going to make them sick or kill them. So I try use a lot of safe plants, so I'll stick to ferns, different types of grasses. You can get types of native lavender, which are okay. If you did want to have more of a drier spot in your enclosure, you could put like a succulent there. Air plants are really good because they get most of their moisture and nutrients from the air. So there's a huge variety of plants that you can use. Once I've planted all of my plants in the soil, what I will do is I'll put a nice thick layer of sphagnum moss, and sometimes this will encourage them to dig in that and not underneath the plant, but it doesn't always work. Bangers, she's pretty good. She doesn't really like to dig. Her enclosure is slightly different. She's a climber. I don't know why. I don't even think she knows she's a blue-tongued lizard. She absolutely loved to climb since she was a baby. She was just a little bit unusual when it came to her behaviors. And she was the runt. They thought she was going to die, and she ended up surviving, but she's just got a very unique personality. So she's always climbing around all the table displays that I've had. I've taken her to markets where I've actually sold products, and she's walked, climbed all over everything. She actually will go to the front of the table and seek out pats. So my enclosures are built to what the animal needs, but also their personalities. But Hannibal, he's a digger. He will dig underneath everything, the plants, substrate, right to the bottom. And that's another thing to consider with Bioactive. So for me, my outdoor enclosures, my drainage, I've actually drilled holes into the wood and siliconed around that exposed wood, and that's how the water drains. I don't use rocks or a substrate layer. If you are going to use a substrate layer, you can use something like rocks and then put like a fly screen type thing over the top so they can't dig into the rocks and mix that with the substrate. So that's a good thing to do because these guys are diggers, and Hannibal will be doing that. But I think Hannibal would even scrape up that fly screen and bunch it up and somehow still get down there. So I think I'd probably have to secure that one way or another, but that is something to keep in mind. So if you're doing outdoor enclosures, I would highly recommend drilling a few little holes for drainage point. Yes, people could say you could lose some of your bioactive bugs, but if you've got like a nice big outdoor enclosure, there are going to be a few that will stay and still do the job, and they'll breed, they'll multiply. So for me personally, I haven't had any issues. Thank you so much guys for watching our video. Hopefully we did answer a lot of your questions. If there were things that we didn't cover and you would like more information or maybe another video on it, feel free to put it in the comments below. But again, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell button for more videos coming out. I think some of the next videos we will be doing will be a children's python care video. We'll also be doing a black-headed python care video. So a few other things coming out, and then also a bit of a bioactive enclosure setup and a few different types of species you can do this with. But thanks for joining us. Thanks so much to Bangers for being amazing as always, and we'll see you next time.